The Gulf of Mexico does not give up its dead easily. Beneath its warm, deceptively calm surface lies a graveyard that most people never think about. A dark, pressurized world where the wreckage of the Second World War still rests in silence, exactly where it fell decades ago. And somewhere in those depths, resting on the seafloor roughly 5,000 feet below the surface, lies a German U-boat that changed the course of a single night in 1942 and then vanished from the official record for more than half a century. This is the story of U-166. But more than that, this is the story of what happens when a weapon of war meets its end in secret, when the truth gets buried alongside the wreckage, and when the ocean keeps its silence long after the last man has stopped asking questions. To understand what U-166 was doing in the Gulf of Mexico in the summer of 1942, you have to understand how desperate and how bold the German U-boat campaign had become. By mid-1942, Admiral Karl Dönitz had unleashed his submarines into American coastal waters in an operation the Germans called Paukenschlag, Operation Drumbeat. Idea was brutally simple. Strike American shipping before the United States could organize its defenses. Sink tankers, cargo vessels, troop transports, anything that moved fuel, supplies, or men toward the European theater. And for months, it worked with terrifying efficiency. American vessels were being sunk at a rate that bordered on catastrophic. The coastlines of the eastern seaboard and the Gulf of Mexico became hunting grounds. Ships burned in sight of civilians on the shore. The ocean ran with oil. Survivors floated for days, waiting for rescue that sometimes never came. U-166 entered this campaign as one of Dönitz's instruments, a Type IXC U-boat, a long-range submarine designed to operate far from home, far from support, and deep inside enemy waters. Its commander was Kapitan Lieutenant Hans-Gunther Kuhlmann. He was 26 years old. U-166 departed Lorient, France, in late June of 1942. Its orders directed it into the Gulf of Mexico, one of the most strategically valuable bodies of water the Germans had identified along the American coastline. The Gulf was a pipeline. Oil from Texas refineries moved through it constantly, feeding an Allied war machine that depended on fuel above almost everything else. If you could disrupt that flow, even briefly, you could slow an entire theater of war. Kuhlmann and his crew of 52 men slipped through the Atlantic, moved through the Straits of Florida, and entered the Gulf quietly. They were operating in what the Germans called a happy hunting ground. American anti-submarine warfare at this stage was still disorganized, still learning, still underestimating the reach and the nerve of the U-boat fleet. Over the following weeks, U-166 hunted. The historical record confirms at least one kill. On July 30th, 1942, U-166 torpedoed the SS Robert E. Lee, an American passenger and cargo vessel carrying passengers and military personnel through the Gulf. The ship sank quickly. More than 200 people survived, but 25 did not. It was a single strike in a summer full of them. Another name added to the growing list of Allied losses in American coastal waters. What happened next, however, would remain unclear for decades. Within hours of sinking, the Robert E. Lee U-166 disappeared. There was no distress signal, no reported contact with Allied forces in the area, no confirmed sighting by any vessel or aircraft. The submarine simply ceased to exist in any documented record. In the chaos of 1942, with hundreds of ships and submarines being lost across multiple oceans simultaneously, U-166 was recorded as missing, cause unknown, fate unknown, 52 men gone. The German Navy listed the submarine as lost sometime in August 1942. The exact date was uncertain. The location was uncertain. Everything, it seemed, was uncertain. For the families of those 52 men, uncertainty was all they were given. No graves, no confirmed account, no final coordinates, just the silence that the sea offers in place of answers. For 59 years, U-166 remained exactly where it had come to rest. Invisible, unmapped, undisturbed. Then, in 2001, a survey crew working on behalf of a pipeline company was conducting routine seafloor mapping in the Gulf of Mexico. They were not looking for a World War II submarine. They were not searching for anything historical at all. What their equipment detected stopped the survey entirely. At a depth of approximately 5,000 feet, resting on the seafloor roughly 50 miles south of the mouth of the Mississippi River, lay the unmistakable outline of a submarine. It was U-166. The discovery triggered something unusual, not just scientific or historical interest, but a deeper, quieter kind of reckoning. Because alongside U-166, the survey team found something else. A second wreck, an American patrol craft, PC-566, lay nearby, resting in the same deep water. The two vessels had died together. Or rather, one had killed the other and then been killed in turn. The sequence of events that had been lost for 60 years was now, at least partially, visible on the seafloor. What the physical evidence suggested, and what subsequent investigations by NOAA and the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management would spend years trying to confirm, was a sequence of events happening within minutes of each other on the same day. U-166 torpedoes, the Robert E. Lee PC-566, the American patrol craft escorting the passenger vessel, responds. It drops depth charges in the area where the torpedo track originated. And U-166, still in the vicinity, still in shallow enough tactical range to be struck, is hit. It sinks in minutes. All 52 men are lost instantly, or close to it. It was not a mysterious disappearance in the way that word usually implies. It was war. It was fast. It was total. And yet the mystery did not dissolve with the discovery. It deepened. Because here's the question that the wreck site raises, quietly, every time researchers revisit it. If PC-566 sank U-166, why was there no confirmed kill record in American naval documentation from 1942? The answer, unsatisfying as it is, comes down to the nature of anti-submarine warfare at that stage of the conflict. Contact reports were sometimes lost. Communications were incomplete. In the confusion following the Robert E. Lee sinking with survivors in the water and rescue operations underway, a reported depth charge attack may simply have been filed without confirmation, without follow-up, without anyone ever closing the loop. The kill existed. It just wasn't known to be a kill. 52 men died unacknowledged by the enemy that killed them. Their fate was sealed in a moment that the other side didn't fully realize had happened. There is something in that specific detail that refuses to sit quietly in the mind. The wreck of U-166 today is a designated war grave under both American and German maritime law. It is protected. It is not dived. The men inside it, whatever remains of them after more than 80 years on the seafloor, are considered still to be in their rightful place of rest. Germany formally acknowledged the wreck after the 2001 discovery. The families of the crew, those who were still living, those whose parents or grandparents had simply been told that a husband, a son, a brother was missing, were given, at last, a coordinate, a depth, a confirmed place on the map where the story ended. That is not nothing. For some families, that is everything. And yet the Gulf of Mexico holds more than one story of this kind. Research since 2001 has identified additional wreck sites in the same region. Additional vessels from both sides, additional names that were carried into the deep and not recovered. U-166 was found. Many others have not been. What draws divers and researchers and historians back to these waters year after year is not purely the archaeology. It is the specific quality of silence that deep water imposes on violent history. On the surface, wars are loud. They are declared, debated, recorded, argued over. They fill archives and memorials and textbooks. They are interpreted and reinterpreted across generations. But 5,000 feet below the surface of the Gulf of Mexico, none of that noise reaches. Down there, a U-boat sits exactly as it fell. The hull is corroding slowly, inevitably, returning molecule by molecule to the ocean that swallowed it. The men inside passed beyond the reach of history long ago. They are simply there, in the dark, in the cold, at a depth no human hand will likely ever touch, and the water above them moves, and the ships cross, and the years pass, and most people driving along the Gulf Coast in summer, watching the water glitter in the heat, have no idea what is resting beneath it. That is the real depth of this story. Not just the submarine, not just the mission, not just the discovery, but the distance between what we remember and what we have forgotten, and the possibility that somewhere beneath the surface of things we think we understand, there is still something waiting to be found.